Hey, I'm Brianna here from Bamby Media. We are going to go through something today, which I'm very excited to go through. A lot of statistics and analytics about why people are tuning out of your podcast, why they're not listening, when they stop listening. Do you suck? This study is going to show you what you can potentially do to actually help people stick around and listen to your podcast for a longer period of time. This study has been provided by the podcaststudy.com. It's talking about podcast growth, and the objectives of this study are essentially just to help people grow the usage within their existing audience and then also grow and reach and expand the audience that they already have. So it's kind of like a double whammy of goodness here. We're going to get straight to the juice here as to the methodology for this actual study. So it was done in July of 2025. It was for adults around 18 to 54. The sample size was 1,200 people, and it was mostly weighted to US Census. All listen to podcasts monthly, and 88% of them listen weekly or daily. So these are people that actually listen to podcasts quite a lot. This is the kind of data that we want. We want data from people that are actually listening to podcasts a lot. The first most important part of this study is to kind of let you know that really people don't have a lot of space in their listening. So they have maybe about 3 titles that they listen to on a really regular basis, and it's really hard to become their number one. Now, you might know that from your own experience of kind of listening to podcasts. You may have 2 or 3 that you listen to all the time religiously, or you have maybe 4 or 5 that you're like in the radar of, but you might not listen to them every week. And you might do like batching sessions where you listen to a bunch of a podcast that you haven't been able to listen to. So it is still kind of technically in your top like 3 to 5, but you're not consuming it on a really regular basis. That's kind of like me with Smartless. I flippin' love that show so much, but I can't listen to it every week because I've just got so much going on. Podcast consumption, 59% listen to or watch 3 or fewer podcast titles per week. 3 of 4 love their favorite podcast. And the bottom line is, if you're not their favorite, you are going to be fighting for 1 or 2 slots. So it's important for you to become their favorite. It's hard to compete, especially with big shows, but for a niche audience, you can still absolutely do it. Part of the study that I found really interesting and did kind of make me laugh as well is this podcast first impression. So when you try a podcast for the first time and are disappointed, how likely are you to try it a second time? And for those listening, we've got 41% of people saying, I'm not likely to give a podcast a second chance. That's a huge area of the market. We also have 40% of people saying they're somewhat likely and 19% of people saying they're very likely. So there's about 20% of people that feel like, yeah, they'll give it another go. 40% are saying possibly, maybe it depends on how bad that first sort of impression is. And then a big whack of people are saying, nah, no chance, not giving you a second chance. So what does that make you think? First impressions really matter. And I've said this over and over again, and I say this to our clients all the time, and I say this to our editors. If you are not good, if you are not grabbing them in the first 30 seconds, it doesn't matter if it's video or audio, okay? If your audio quality sucks, right? If they put it on and they're like, oh man, there's a lot of like background noise, or there's like a weird hiss, or like straight to a giant intro, like a 1.5 minutes of an intro. What do you think? That's a pretty bad impression. So these things, if you're trying to get to their number one, if you're trying to compete, you need to be good. You need to be good in that first 30 to 90 seconds, and editing with good quality, like actual recording, is going to be how you get there. You want to be not something that they're disappointed by in the first like minute, because they are likely to just be like, nah, not going to bother with that one ever again. And you could be the most amazing show. Next up, podcasts. Why do they stop early? Why do people turn you off? When you find yourself stopping a podcast before it ends, what are the big reasons why? And again, this one made me laugh a little bit, and also it was kind of joyful to explore. 40% say it was just boring. 33% said it started with too much meaningless talk. Yes, this to me is a huge one. So many podcasts start with people catching up with like, what did you do on the weekend? And how was your thing? And all the stuff. And, you look nice today. That's actually awesome to do with your co-host or with your guest or whatever. Like, it's good to build rapport. It's good to feel grounded and like you're really getting into the session. But the listener doesn't really need to hear that, because when you think about it, okay, you have a title of your episode. You have to deliver on that title. It's the same way with video as it is with audio. If the podcast title is like, why avocados are more expensive. If you start with, how was your day? And how's your daughter going? And how is your dog? And like all this stuff. Okay, what does it have to do with avocados being more expensive? Nothing. It has nothing to do with it. So you need to start with less meaningless talk. Unless you're like a celebrity and everyone wants to kind of hear about your day, there's way less appetite for that stuff. And next one up, 26%, too much talk that was off topic. Again, this is something that can be fixed really easily in editing. We do a lot of this here at Bamby Media, where a guest starts going off on a tangent, like the host, who is one of our clients, generally very good at this point, they'll ask a question, which is a solid question. And then the guest is like, well, let me tell you a story about the time I blah, and then they go off on some sort of rabbit warren of a tangent. And okay, it might be good, but we just go cut. Like we really condense, because again, we're always thinking about the listener. Does the listener care about this, or does the listener want an answer to the question that was asked? And so tangential kind of stuff can get really annoying, and 26% of people are like, no, it's too much off topic. Another one that can be fixed by editing, 25%, hosts kept repeating themselves. That happens more than you potentially think. If you're editing your stuff, then you can actually see that, hear it, listen to it, whatever, and go, okay, I've said that sentence now multiple times, and I really need to condense that down. 23%, there isn't enough interesting talk. So again, something that can be fixed with editing, and also just a bit of planning before you actually hit record. Like, what am I going to talk about? Why would this be interesting to someone? 21% say the discussion moves too slowly. Again, fixed with editing. And 19% hosts are talking over one another, which is one of my pet peeves personally here. It's fine if it's more of like a general chat, but a lot of the time it's just really hard for the listener. If too many people are talking at once, and especially if they can't see them, right, and they're just listening to it, they're like, hang on, who's who? And like, it's hard to really gather the thoughts properly. And oftentimes, you just want to cut it out. And so removing the crosstalk is going to be really beneficial to how long people want to actually listen to you for. 16% say the hosts refer to things you have no context for. And that is something that is very clear when you are watching a show versus listening to a show. And some of the biggest shows do that, actually, like Diary of a CEO. Sometimes it would be like they are showing something and you're listening to it. You're not watching it. And they're not describing it. And so you're like, well, what? Okay, I don't know what I'm listening to here. And then now I have to go, I don't want to go watch it on YouTube. I want the context. It's important that you have the listener in mind. Even if you're doing video, you need to make sure that you're supporting the listener, because the listener is still a valuable ear. The listener is still valuable to you. And the last one on this list I thought was good. 15% say hosts are trying too hard to be funny. My God, yes. I've listened to so many shows, especially when I've judged podcast awards, which I've done quite a lot, where you're just like, just stop trying to be funny. It's actually not funny at all. Like, it just is cringe. When you come across things where you're like, this is cringy and I feel bad for them. Yeah, that can be a reason why people switch off. Now we're going to move on to podcast intro, the importance of the intro. Do you prefer that the hosts start the podcast by diving right into the main topic, or do you prefer a little relaxed chit chat first? So we were talking about how it's like get straight to the point. This data skews a little bit differently. 75% essentially either want you to dive into the main topic right away, or they're okay with a little bit of chit chat as long as it's short. Now, what does short mean? Maybe it's like a couple of sentences. It certainly isn't a long sort of thing that goes on and on. 22% love the banter. That's actually pretty small percentage-wise. So banter is good depending on the size of the show, what kind of listenership you have. If they're celebrities, if they're people that, you want a sneak peek of their life, then the banter is going to be more valuable to you. But if it's for a topic, you've clicked on an episode, you want to know about why avocados are expensive, you don't want their chit chat, you want it to get to the point. Now, if we move on to podcast marketing, so merchandise and things like that, do any podcasts you listen to or watch offer merchandise for sale? 61% said yes. And then based off of that, have you ever purchased merchandise from a podcast host? Only 25% say yes. This is, again, only a small sample size, 1,200 people. 44% said no, but they would love to, and 31% said of no real interest. So you've got a pretty good spread there of yes or they want to. So it could just be that whatever's being marketed to them doesn't really suit them, but they actually would love to, support the actual podcaster. So that should be valuable information for you to go, okay, if I did offer something for sale, then there is quite a large portion of the market there that would be interested in buying whatever the thing is, as long as it's still a valuable product or service. Podcast emails is up next, and this is something that I found quite interesting. Do you currently receive emails from any podcasts you listen to? Yes, 54%, no, 42%. So it's fairly even spread. And then it says, would you consider signing up to receive emails from a podcast? Only 22% of people that said no, like they don't currently receive emails, would say yes to signing up to an email. 45% said it depends, and 33% said no. So you've got 22% of people that are currently not receiving any emails that would be fine. They would consider signing up. But the caveat to that is further down, where they then say, okay, well, what would make you very likely to sign up to receive emails from a podcast? 46% of people say prizes and gifts. 39% says they want extra info that's not on the podcast. 37% say VIP benefits, and 33% say email from host. They're the kind of bigger ones. So when you think about that spread, you don't want it to be a newsletter that's just like, okay, here's the wrap up of my podcast episode from this week. Here's some details. That's not really very valuable at all. You could do a little one-liner in the email about that, but what else is there? Prizes, gifts, you wouldn't be giving them away every week, but extra info, behind the scenes, like VIP stuff, things that make it just a little bit more interesting to the actual person reading the newsletter. That's what you're going to be needing to do to actually entice them to join your newsletter. Moving on to podcast first impressions. How much time will you listen to / watch a podcast for the first time before you give up on it? Oh, this is a juicy one. 51% give you 5 minutes or less. And we've got 10% of that only give you a minute. So 5 minutes is quite generous, okay? They'll give you 5 minutes, and generally that's because they kind of can't switch you off a lot of the time. Like they'll start listening and they're like driving or they're doing the washing or whatever. And so by default, almost, 5 minutes has passed. That makes it very clear to me, and should to you, that you have such a small amount of time to capture their attention and keep it. What are you doing in that first minute to actually entice them, to keep them? For the love of God, do not make your first minute a giant podcast intro. That is just a diabolical waste of everybody's time. So make it really short. If you're listening to this via my podcast, Pump Up Your Pod, then you'll hear I have a tiny bit at the front of my podcast. There's literally just a little bit of music, and that's actually music that I've created. We want to get to the point really quick, and we want to give people the value because their attention spans are small. There's too much good content out there that you're competing with, and if you suck, they're going to give up on you really quick. Podcast discovery is up next. Would hearing / seeing a short sample of a podcast make you more likely to try it? 47% of people say definitely short samples drive a trial. And then another 42% say probably. Only 10% of people say it makes no difference. What does this tell us? Social media video snippets are so important to drive traffic to your podcast. And they can't suck either, okay? They have to be good snippets. They have to look professional. They have to have good video quality. We can't have a bunch of pixelation happening. It needs to get to the point. It needs to be a valuable grab. It needs to be funny. It needs to have cutaways. It needs to have good text, and it's branded and colored, all the things. That's all stuff that we do here at Bamby Media. You'll be able to see if you go to our Instagram and things like that. And all our clients, we do a lot of social media snippets for a bunch of our clients, depending on which package they are on, which is the salted caramel and up. For those interested, you can go to Bamby Media/services to find out that information. So you can see here, 62% of people find out about a podcast via social media. If you are not posting anything on social media, then you are really shooting yourself in the foot. Please start doing it. 57% say family and friends, and that's word of mouth, and that's always been really strong in the podcasting category. And then how likely would you be to try a podcast if someone you know verbally tells you about it? 49%, or sent you a clip, 49%. So they are wanting to hear from their friends, and they respect their friends' opinions. And if their friend is saying like, hey, listen to this thing, then they're way more likely to actually do it. So good quality content for video snippets is really what's going to drive some traffic to your actual podcast. Now, I even see that on the Bamby Media channel. So with our podcast, Pump Up Your Pod, we also have this YouTube channel, right? Where I'm now recording in video everything that I do here. The podcast downloads are going up in relation to how much content I put on YouTube. So even if the YouTube views, aren't huge, which again, it's a niche audience, I don't really care, to be honest. This is more thought leadership than anything else. The actual listenership of the podcast is going up in relation to what's actually happening on YouTube as well. In saying that, I'm not even sharing any shorts on YouTube at this point. I haven't even introduced that as a strategy on YouTube yet, because I'm building out the long form strategy first and then playing with that. You don't need to know my broader strategy, I suppose, but that's kind of letting you know that one informs the other. They can't always tune in on video, but they can tune in on audio and they still get the value there as well. So to summarize what we've gone through here today in this lovely podcast study, thank you to thepodcaststudy.com for actually producing this. I love diving into this kind of stuff because there's just not enough of these kind of analytics done. Most podcast consumers listen to or watch 3 or fewer titles per week. Their shelf space is small. Remember that. How are you going to get in? Your content has to be good. Your quality has to be good. Your consistency has to be good. Keep those things in mind. I don't want to put like a heap of pressure on you, but if you're going to do something, give it your all. Don't half-ass it. I get annoyed by that, especially if they're coming to us, because it's like, we're a significant investment. We want you to be significantly invested in what you're doing here. You need to up your game to get on that shelf space. There are plenty of crappy shows. Plenty. You don't want to be a crappy show. You want to be a really good show that converts into what it is that you want from the person. Do you want more money? Like, as in you want to sell more products or services? You're going to do that by actually getting on that shelf space. Do you want to sell merchandise? Do you want to have a broader community? Do you want to create some sort of business around the podcast? You're not going to be able to do any of these things. You're not going to be able to build a personal brand properly around your show if you don't have high quality content. People will accept scrappy for a little while, but not for a long time. The first 10 to 60 seconds are critical. What are you doing in that first 60 seconds? How are you editing that? What are you doing to get to the point? And if you are editing it yourself, put that on a post-it note somewhere on your computer or whatever. Get to the point. By that 60-second mark, you better have said something that's important. Events are going much better than I expected. do think about that from your perspective. Is running some sort of event or meetup really a good idea for your podcast? If your show is kind of small, might not be at this point, but it's something that you can expand on in the future, knowing that people love to go to them. Contest prizing, short samples of your clips all really work well to drive engagement and discovery to your show. And social media, as well as friends and family, like word of mouth, are the best ways to actually increase your reach. That is the summary of what we've kind of discussed here today. I hope it was valuable to you. I really, really enjoyed diving into this. It's the kind of things I say all the time to our clients and to our pod coach members. So they're the ones that I get to go deeper with, and we do all analytics and we look at kind of the broad spread of the show and how it's evolving over time and their content, etc. Having this kind of data to kind of shove in their face and go, hey, look, see, like this is why we do things the way we do it. This is why we demand certain things from you as a podcaster, as a person who's on YouTube. The quality needs to be there. Once you've figured that out, once you've been able to establish what kind of show you have, who it's serving, and how best to get that person engaged, you're going to win. You really are. It's not a losing game here in podcasting. If you're consistent and you have high quality content for a long period of time, I haven't seen that ever go badly, to be honest. And we have had some clients working with us now for over 6 years that keep going, that have been consistently releasing for that whole time because they're seeing results. So just keep that in mind. I hope that was valuable for you. If you need any more information about who we are, then you can find that info in the description below. Bye.